I must ask, are you optimistic about, the future of the world? I mean, in terms of education, do you think more people will rise up to the challenge?
Um, I think it depends on a number of things. First of all, to answer directly, I am optimistic because I can see people being occupied and preoccupied about these issues and not being defeated totally by the pessimism that the situation that we have actually brings about. At the same time, I really think that it is my responsibility as a scientist and the responsibility of many colleagues of mine working these topics to actually communicate the things as they are. Basically, the old saying, telling it like it is. Although it can be, it can be shocking. It can be, and sometimes even impactful in the sense of having a powerful sensation on people that things are really bad. I think it is absolutely crucial for us to communicate and let people know the magnitude of the challenge that we have in front of us. But at the same time, I'm hopeful to see that many people are actually, motivated to begin to address these problems. From the youth. I mean, we have the wonderful example of Greta Thunberg in the case of climate change. I'm just hoping for somebody to do the same kind of thing in biodiversity issues or in other aspects of the science and the challenges for humanity. So I am hopeful on that. At the same time, within my own discipline, many problems that I have seen have found happy solutions. Many problems of deforestation, many problems of unsustainable use of the natural resources. Many indigenous communities or rural communities have been addressing those problems because they create areas for the conservation of nature, because they create sustainable ways of doing forestry activities, sustainable ways of doing fisheries, and so on and so forth. So I have seen, I have the evidence of many success stories, and those make me feel very, very hopeful. Although I cannot stop in my obligation, in my responsibility of telling it like it is, because I think it's absolutely essential that we do. And I am hoping, that via the kinds of problems that I am investigating today, such as the connections between biodiversity and risks of zoonotic diseases, can actually help a broader audience to appreciate and embrace the solutions of those problems.
Right. And I think it's nice how you brought up Greta Thunberg because that segues into my next question. What can we do as high schoolers, as college students, as the youth to promote and educate ourselves or to lend our voices and actions to this cause?
Yeah, fantastic. I think one thing is to become active in finding the sources of reliable information where they can be cognizant of the challenges that we have. Unfortunately, we also live in an era in which misinformation or deliberately biased information is also accessible and actually can penetrate quite significantly into the society. But I think it's a responsibility for the younger generations to find the appropriate information, the appropriate sources of information to become aware of these problems, to go to places like the one you have, like this set of interviews that you're doing. I know that some other institutions are doing that precisely. The National Academies of Sciences, not only in the US, in many other countries, are also being motivated to do this kind of disseminations of the situations to a broad audience. I think that to the extent that the youth can become active in understanding these issues and then playing the role of ambassadors, communicating to their friends and communicating to their families, right? What is at stake, that can be a very significant role. And in some cases, some special cases like this famous person, Greta, that has been pretty active beyond, her immediate local environment. She has become a very international figure. I mean, it's not easy to go into that path, but to the extent that gradually we begin locally and then expand, and then potentially there might be some other equivalents to that person who might do similar activities. And I think engaging and working with communities, starting with your own community, your family, then your own community, that gradually can help. I think that the big hope for me is to have a society, a well-educated society, well-educated in the sense of being aware of what we're facing today is absolutely essential. And I think that has important repercussions, because when these young people will come to the point in which they have to participate in the elections for the policymakers, for the politicians, for the governors, for the mayors, for the presidents, and so on, they will demand for their candidates to present their agendas for global change, for conservation, for education, for health, and so on, for One Health, for planetary health, and all of those things. That is going to be the most powerful tool that we will have going forward.
Right. Well, those were some inspiring words. And actually, that leads us to the last question for the interview, which is, if you had to give one advice to a high school student, what would it be?
I think it would be a piece of advice that has several elements to it. One is to be willing to be engaged, to be driven by the beauty of science. Please do not come with a veil in front of you by saying, oh, science is very difficult because it will have to do with numbers and there might be some math involved in that. Please remove that veil in front of your eyes, because science is really attractive and it can be approached with many different ways. And it can be accessible to people who are not going to be scientists either, but because science is so fascinating, so beautiful, and so important for us to understand our position in the world, in society, and in the planet as a whole. I think that if you're willing to become infected with science, that is going to be a very useful thing to do. Now, it might be difficult for you to, on your own, to become infected with the beauty of science, but you might want to explore ways in which you can be infected by the beauty of science. For example, websites or programs, educational programs, or the academies, or your teacher as well. So once you become engaged in the science, then try and be cognizant of science per se. If you have an experience in a museum, in a park, in a preserve, you will see how beautiful all of that is, and you see how engaging that is for us to understand. And then, unfortunately, I think that I will have to finish my conversation with a message that I think might be a little bit harsh or even painful, but I think it's critical for us collectively to understand. We are tending to see, we have the trend of having this expression, let's do things to save the planet. I have to tell you, my friends, that unfortunately, that view is not completely correct, because I can tell you the planet has been able to save itself. In the last 550 million years of life on the planet, this incredible amount of time, there have been 5 dramatic experiments of massive destruction of the planet. There have been 5 mass extinctions in the planet. The last one occurred 65 million years ago, that caused the extinction of the dinosaurs and many other groups of organisms as well. So you can see that after 65 million years, we have a planet which is exuberant, beautiful, extremely rich in nature and diversity, species, life forms, and so on. So that tells you that after those cataclysmic experiments that the planet had, life came back. But there are 2 things relevant to this discussion. One of them, life comes back, but it takes many, many years. For example, vertebrates take about 10 million years to come back to the same level of diversity that they had before the extinction process. And I don't think we're planning to live 10 million years personally. And certainly that is not my plan. I don't think I'm going to be able to do that. And second, what comes back is very different to what you used to have before. So if you have seen movies such as The Ice Age, you will know that 10,000 years ago, the planet was dominated by big animals. If you have seen all the movies that have to do with Jurassic Park, you will see that 65 million years ago, life was very different. There were other very different animals dominating the planet. Those things disappeared, and then now the planet is dominated by mammals like us and birds, right? So things are going to be very different, and it's going to take a long time. So really, friends, the problem or the existential problem really is for humanity, not for the planet. The planet will come back. We have proved 5 times in the last 550 million years that the planet will come back. So really, what we're doing, what we're trying to do, is addressing the problem of the existential problem of humanity. And that's the crucial thing that we need to keep in mind. Hence, being motivated to appreciate the science, being motivated to engage with other members of society, being motivated to hold hands together to address the problem collectively, that is going, and having an educated society, that is going to be the way which can address this crucial problem, the existential situation for humanity.
Right. And I think that is a very deep message we all need some time to reflect on. And I really, really hope that this reaches everyone who needs to hear it, because it's something that, anyone, not just people that want to go into conservation biology, needs to hear. But that actually leads to an interview. Thank you to all that's watched. And obviously, thank you to Dr. Dirzo for joining me. I am so incredibly honored to have you here to talk about everything that, I wanted to ask you. And it's been great. Thank you.
It is a pleasure. Thank you so much for what you're doing. Good luck in the dissemination of these efforts and interviews. Thank you.
Thank you so much.